Hello everyone, it is Joe here from OmniPoke, the channel that brings you guys everything Pokemon. If you're looking for PTCG live codes, make sure you check out the Potown store. You can get a 5% discount on your orders using that code OmniPoke. Today I'm going to be going over all the changes to the Worlds qualification for the 2024 World Championships being held in Honolulu, Hawaii. So just a quick rundown on Worlds. It's going to be in August 2024. The exact date hasn't been announced yet, but we do know it's going to be in Honolulu. The World Championships is the only event in the calendar which requires an invite to be able to play in it, and that's why the entire season is based around the World Championships. That's the carrot on the stick for these players, because just attending Worlds, no matter how you do before you've even played a game of Pokemon at the World Championships, you'll have been showered with lots of exclusive Worlds swag. This normally comes in a bag, and then you'll get lots of stuff within that. It's going to be plushies, t-shirts, and exclusive things based on the location that you're at, which is always fantastic stuff to see. Top performers within their region can also get a paid trip to the World Championships, which is also nice. Worlds has the largest prize pool of the year, and it's just recently been bumped up to 50,000 pre-tax, but you can also get those elusive trainer cards and the trophy. All of these do have massive cash values as well, if ever players wish to sell these. There's also a chance for simply immortalization, really, in the hobby. Everyone knows the top players in the game, and winning or doing well at the World Championships is a fantastic way to cement yourself as one of the very best. It's a truly global event. This is where we actually get to play against, a lot of Asian players at the World Championships as well. They have a completely different circuit to us Westerners, and being able to integrate every player, everyone who loves Pokemon all together, is a truly unique experience. And I would just say that the World Championships is just really this amazing celebration of Pokemon. The atmosphere really is fantastic. Everyone's having a great time. Everyone feels like they're a winner, no matter how they've done in the event, and it is just a truly unique occasion going to the World Championships each year compared to every other tournament. Now let's get into the nitty-gritty of what you need in 2024 to actually qualify for Honolulu. You can see on this left-hand side of the screen, it's based on your region. So based on where you live, it's going to be a different total that you need to be hitting here. And that's really just because of availability of tournaments, I would imagine. That's why it's not a flat bar for everyone. Based on the region you're in, there are different thresholds to be hitting. So definitely be aware of these for whichever region you're in, because it's going to make a huge difference. There are a few changes actually also with the qualification for the season. Of course, the CP itself has changed from the previous year and has been raised in a number of instances. But we actually have some good news in that anyone who wins a regional, European special event or an international championships receive an automatic invite regardless of how many championship points they end on, which really makes each regional itself very special. And it means that, there could be a select number of people that don't have to worry about grinding week to week, League Cups, League Challenges and whatnot. As soon as someone spikes a regional, that could be their season done and they could kick back and relax. Now, there are also 3 tiers of an invite. You can see here that the tier 3 of an invite is simply meeting the qualifications that you can see here based on your region. That's the lowest range of getting an invite. The tier 2 invite is also based on region, broken down to a different number of people, but tier 2 Worlds invitees also get a travel stipend, which is $1,000 pre-tax paid after the event as long as you attend. And a tier 1 invite, these are the top players in their region. You can see the top 16 players for US and Canada, the top 22 players for Europe, etc. These players will receive a travel award. So this is an increase from a travel stipend. It's different, as you can see, based on the region. These are the differences. It's substantially more money if you are receiving this travel award compared to a stipend, but you will also receive a round 1 bye in the World Championships itself. Now, this is also a profound change from the previous World Championships, where players who were in this top 16, top 22, that sort of thing, they would be immediately fast-tracked into the day 2 of the World Championships tournament. That entire process has been scrapped for the World Championships, and now the World Championships Championships is going to be much more similar to what we already know from International Championships, where it will still be a 3-day event, because we will have a day 1 Swiss, then day 2 Swiss, and then day 3 will be the finals exactly. So some of those players who are sort of chasing the very top end of their region, it is a big disadvantage in comparison, right? Simply not having to play the first 8 rounds of a tournament, guaranteeing yourself essentially being deep into the event, where we've already cut down from many hundreds of players down to, I believe, this year's day 2 was 170 players total. Getting a top 32 placement from 170 players is much easier than doing it from, you know, that initial 600 players that you have to start out with in the day 1 field. There's no longer going to be that difference in sort of day 1 player fatigue going into the next day of competition. There's not going to be the day 2 players getting that free information and then being able to submit their deck list the following day after having seen what the metagame looks like, what new decks have come out, what techs are being played in decks. That sort of thing is completely on an even keel now. Everyone, even with that round 1 bye, it's certainly an advantage, but every now and then in regionals and international championships, people will randomly just get a round 1 bye and still certainly not make the second day of competition, for example. It's going to be a little bit helpful, but shouldn't be the be-all and end-all. So I believe that it's going to be much better for tier 3 invitees, and much more likely that tier 3 invitees are going to go deeper into the World Championships in the future. And I really feel like this is a massive change for players, and really does make me think differently about what it means to get an invite this season. So now that we know the thresholds of points that we need to earn, let's start talking about how we can start earning these championship points. Well, there are 5 types of events in which you can earn championship points. There are league challenges, league cups, regional events, special events, and international championships. The league challenges on the left-hand side of your screen, this is the most entry level of tournaments. These are, you know, sometimes going to be around like 12 players, 20 players, that sort of thing. They're going to be held at Pokemon League locations, and they offer up the lowest amount of championship points. The prizes are based on the location itself and the amount of players in that tournament, as well as like the entry fee and all that stuff. It's going to be unique to the actual organizer. There's a best finish limit of 6 for league challenges this season. Let's take this example. You go to 6 league challenges, you win 5 of them, and then get 1 top 4 finish. And then you go to a 7th league challenge and you get top 8. Even though you would normally get 8 points for a top 8 finish, assuming we have hit the kicker of 21 players, because you've already got 6 better finishes in your 5 wins on your 1 top 4, you would not then get the additional 8 points. However, if you'd got 2nd place at the 7th league challenge that you attended, you would then take away from your previous top 4 finish, and you would gain 2 additional championship points. I know this isn't a huge jump in championship points, but essentially what I'm trying to say here is that there will be a point at which you've attended enough league challenges to where you really won't be getting much advantage in terms of championship points for attending many more of them. We're going to see the best finish limit is going to be the same here. 6 for league challenges, 6 for league cups, and going to be showing up later as well. So do keep an eye out on these best finish limits. It means that you are essentially capping yourself on the amount of total championship points you can earn in each of these different styles of events. Now let's have a look then. For a first place, we're getting 15 championship points. It is definitely worth looking at these kickers as well. Oftentimes it's going to be, you know, a top 4 or a top 8 for these league challenges in particular. I think it's going to be rare occasions where they're going to hit 48 or 80 players just for league challenges. It's not something I've heard of happening too often. So really you're looking to get top 4 placements. These are typically going to be like 3 or 4 round tournaments. Obviously, if we are getting higher attendance numbers, there could be higher numbers of Swiss rounds, but league challenges also don't have top cuts, so you will just play Swiss rounds, and then your placement will depend on exactly your win-loss record as well as your resistance. So these are the only things to bear in mind for a league challenge. These are kind of the smallest and the shortest tournaments. The league cups are a bit of a step up in difficulty. Now there will be top cut after Swiss rounds, so typically it's going to be a decent number of hours being played played at a League Cup, where we're going to be probably playing, you know, if you make it into Top Cut or whatever, it could be 8 or 9 rounds that you end up playing overall in the day. It's also going to be held by those Pokemon League locations, and the pricing will still vary based on where you're having your tournament and how many people are in it and how much the entry fee was, etc. But as you can see, compared to League Challenges, there's a pretty big bump in championship points here. League Cups, I would say, are a higher priority than League Challenges. If you want to start grinding your local area, I think League Cups are going to be a much more worthy use of your time, because as you can see, just the pure amount of points that you can earn from League Cups is substantially more than Challenges. Both of these help out, and they have different best finish limits, so there's a reason to attend both of them, but League Cups just offer way more and even have a better trickle down, where very often for League Cups you will be hitting the kicker to at least hit a top 8, which means you're getting a pretty decent chunk of points there. The special events, regionals and internationals, are what we call higher tier events. These are the ones that provide significantly more prizing and championship points. So let's get on to those next. So on the left-hand side of the screen, we have regional championships. This is a very high level of competition. Typically, a regional is comprised of players mostly within your region, but sometimes there will be people traveling from other regions just to try and get a chance at a regional championships. And invite chasers should certainly look at going to a number of regionals if they want to have a good chance of actually making it to the World Championships in their season. There's a best finish limit of 6 for regional championships, and this is shared with special events. So essentially, when you are thinking of regionals and special events, you basically lump them together. The only difference between a regional and a special event is that you do not get the cash prizing at a special event that you would get at a regional. Everything else about a regional and a special event is the same. So let's have a look at this breakdown then. You do get 200 championship points for a win, and you get an invite. Now, this is only for regional championships and specifically European special events. That's the only other stipulation. Regionals now has a $10,000 cash prize for winning, and this is actually a big increase from previous years, and it means that if you actually do perform well at these tournaments, it's likely that you are at least breaking even now and usually coming home plussing, which was not the case for almost every player going to regionals in the past. So amazing to see this huge injection of cash going into still pretty much the top end, but I feel like at some point you got to be rewarding the players that do well and not just handing out everything to everyone. So I feel like they've done a pretty good balance here. Also, a few things to note: they've added a kicker of top 512 for regionals, and most importantly, when we look at internationals in a second, there's a top 1024 kicker, which means that we could have some really high attendance for these tournaments. We've had many regionals that have hit over 1,000 players, so this kicker is actually pretty reasonable here, and it means that if we are going to be attending these tournaments, that if we've hit a kicker of over 1,000 people, almost half of the people are going to go home with something, be it points or packs, and I think that's just amazing for the ratios, for the general happiness and contentment of the player base, that it feels like you're getting something out of your day, even if things haven't gone to plan and you've not got right in the mix and had everything go your way and there's been bad strokes of luck or whatever, or you just didn't even make the right choice or made mistakes. I think that's fine. You're still getting bits that help you towards that invite, and I think that's substantially different from the previous year, where it felt so punishing just to whiff points altogether, sometimes even on resistance for the lower placings, and it felt like your entire weekend was wasted. I feel like that happens for many less people going into this new season, where at least you get a little bit of buffer of points that helps you on your way to the World Championships, if that's important to you. Then we have international championships. This is the highest level of competition during the season. There is no limit to the amount of finishes you can have at internats. There are 3 of them this season, and players from around the world will be in attendance because these are the tournaments that have the biggest cash payouts and championship point payouts available, and this should be a competitive player's priority if you're willing to travel abroad, certainly. Even if you're someone that's just thinking about doing a few regionals, I've even heard stories of it being less expensive to fly to London, for example, than certain domestic flights within the US when you're going from coast to coast. So definitely keep an eye on international championships. They are so incredibly worthwhile from a championship point and cash perspective that these are going to be integral to getting your invite. And I feel like for EUIC and NAIC this season, they could both easily hit that kicker of top 1024. And And once again, if we do end up hitting that kicker, it means that almost half the room ends up with 50 championship points, even if they had a fairly mediocre day, to be perfectly frank with you. And that's the same as a League Cup win. So you could have a pretty mid-day and still end up with a meaningful chunk of championship points. And as you start doing well, as you can see, the pricing is just pretty outrageous, to be honest with you. $25,000 pre-tax for a win now. You get 500 championship points and that automatic invite, 15k for a second place, 10k for a top 4. But I mean, just going all the way down to top 64 of an international championships with that recognition of $2,000. Such an amazing upgrade from our previous structure. They really have thrown everything at this season, and they are rewarding players for doing well. Now let's have a quick look at the season calendar. Definitely a decent one to screenshot if you want to. This is something that I have in a spreadsheet myself because it's going to help me keep on top of things and keep my eye on my options throughout the season. What I think is super interesting actually about this season in particular is that almost every regional, even across the globe, are on different dates. Previously there was a number of crossovers from NA and EU and whatever where there would be multiple tournaments happening over the same weekend. Just from eyeballing this, you can see that only happens on 2 occasions the entire season, which means that, again, if you want to do some hopping over across the pond, that's something that is available to you if you just want to have the chance at more regional and special events. You can see the asterisks in the EU column for Barcelona and Utrecht. These are because they are special events, which means they're probably a lot less worthwhile for non-EU residents because there's no cash prizing. But this should be a really nice layout for people to start getting organized. I definitely think trying to book things in advance gives you a really good chance of getting things at a lower price, and I think that's really important for gamers who want to go to multiple regional championships. You can also see highlighted in blue are the 3 international championships. We do have the dates confirmed for all of these now. So the LAIC is in November 17th to 19th. The EUIC back in London is going to be on the 5th to 7th of April, and the NAIC has actually been brought forward to June. It's typically in July, so it looks like we might be having, in theory, I guess, a shorter season this year. But what I will say is that this is not necessarily the complete calendar, and there may be tournaments added in the future. How many times have we seen that even places like Europe, I know that we've had late announcements of special events in the past towards the back end of the season. So these are all things to bear in mind. There may be 1 or 2 added in the future, so just keep an eye out on that. But for now, this should give you a really good framework of what weekends you need to block out and start trying to keep open and start booking some holiday dates for as well. On to my final thoughts then. Chasing an invite definitely isn't for everyone. It's an expensive hobby, it's very time consuming, and this season's bar in particular for the World Championships is very high. I do think the fact that they have such generous kickers for regionals and internationals is going to allow us to have that feeling of that we're chipping away at the invite the entire time, but I do think you are going to need a substantial amount of pretty strong regional finishes alongside being diligent with the amount of league challenges and league cups you attend to try and knock out a number of those best finishes and just make sure that you're grinding away as you go. You know, I'm someone that's had many invites over the years. There's been years where I've not had to go to any league challenges. There's been seasons where I've only attended like 4 regionals or specials, and I think that season is just not going to be it. I'm going to have to play in probably a couple of the internationals. I'm going to have to play in, I would say, at least 4 or 5 regionals and special events, and I'm planning on bashing out probably about 10 cups and try and make sure I'm on the higher end of those best finishes. The one thing I will say though is that it's not all about the World Championships this year. I think internationals and regionals are so generous with their payouts that, my goodness, what a feeling it would be if you just end up attending 1 or 2 of those this season and let that be your highlight, because man, there's still riches on the line. There's still huge chunks of money that can really make your weekend worthwhile and make it a real highlight of your season. So even if the World Championships isn't for you, I would certainly still advise going to regionals and internats, because at the end of the day, it's still for the love of Pokemon, and it's still giving you great tournament experience for maybe other seasons where the bar could be lower, or you just start improving as a player and can consider worlds when your circumstances change or whatnot. And at the end of the day, if you end up having a fantastic tournament, you're going to walk away with a whole bunch of prizes, which is also fantastic. The final thing I'll say is that if you are someone who is chasing an invite, I think it's never been a better time to be a tier 3 invitee where you just have that base invite. I'm someone that has always just gone for the base invite, and I'm so excited that it actually feels super rewarding now in terms of the tournament itself. I feel like tier 3 invitees actually have a very genuine chance of ending up in the top cut of the World Championships. Obviously, there are those people that spike day 1 and make it all the way through day 2 as well, but these people are having to fight, mental fatigue compared to the players in day 2 who are fairly fresh and have only had to play like 5 or 6 rounds of Pokemon. You've had to be in there for a grueling like 14 rounds or whatever. Now everyone's going to be going through that 14 round marathon or whatever it is, so it's going to be a much different playing field, I think, especially because now secret decks and rogue decks at Worlds could be coming back because there isn't that whole day 1 reveal thing that people can adjust for the day 2 of the World Championships. So I think there's so many different dynamics for the World Tournament itself changing to what is essentially just like another international championships in terms of the structure. It's going to really change the way the tournament is also going to be played by the players. So hopefully this was a helpful and informative video. I tried to share some of my opinions along the way as well. I'm personally in favor of pretty much everything that they changed this season. I'm yet to really see the impact of the high bar for the World Championships, but I have already stated that I'm not against Worlds having this exclusive feel where it is going to be the most dedicated and best players around the world, especially because it feels like now each individual regional and international should have its own prestige, should have its own pull for the general player base. Let me know your thoughts down below. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow for another video. Cheers.